2, 3. We're Arena and you're watching Live Prog.
Hello music friends, Marcel Hasser here from Live Prog. It is time for a new album review. And this album review we're going to dive into a little bit of music history, going back all the way to 1993, but also touching down on 2009. Because in this review I have for you Mick Pointer Band, Marillion's Script Revisited.
So here I am once more, in the playground of the broken hearts. One more experience, one more entry in a diary self-penned.
And this is the album in question. I see some reflection in the screen. Well, fortunately I found a really useful tip from a fellow reviewer on YouTube. So I'm taking out the booklet. And there we have it. This is the front of the album, Marillion's Script Revisited by Mick Pointer. And here we have some information, as you can see with the lineup. But there's a chance you already know the lineup. Here we have some photos and of course the man himself, Mr. Mick Pointer. Now, Mick Pointer may very well be known to most people as the drummer of Arena. Here we have a nice overview of the whole band. You know, there are some really great photos in here. Now, of course, yes, Mick Pointer formed Arena together with Clive Nolan. But if we go back in history a little bit further till 1979, you will know that he formed Marillion. Initially called it Silmarillion, but you know, due to possible problems with the Tolkien family, they changed their name to Marillion. And in 1983 it was a very important year, and I think every Marillion fan knows it, but probably every Prog fan as well, because then Marillion released their debut album Script for a Jesters Tear. A little over 30 years old, but still a very powerful album, and in my opinion this is one of my favorite Marillion albums ever. You know, that first album, despite the fact that they had just started out making music for a few years, they still show that they are amazing musicians, amazing songwriters, and the years to come would prove that. And well, Marillion is still going very strong. They had lineup changes, unfortunately, and after the release and tour of this album, unfortunately also Mick Pointer parted ways with Marillion. It was quiet for a long time until 1995, and of course he returned with Arena together with Clive Nolan. Then there was this point where the Script for Jesters Tear would have its 25th anniversary. Now, we all know that Marillion has changed a lot. I mean, since the 90s, Steve Hogarth is the vocalist, and Steve Hogarth is a completely different person, a different singer than Fish ever was. And nothing bad about him. Marillion is a very fine band, but I don't think, with all due respect, that Steve Hogarth should sing the Fish year material, because well, his voice is completely different and he doesn't have the same effect that Fish would have. So, you know, really enjoying those years, you have to go back to, for example, the DVD from Recital of the Script, or listen to Thieving Magpie or Reel to Reel, and then you get that really old-fashioned Marillion vibe. Mick Pointer wanted to go back to the days of this album, Script for a Jesters Tear, and he wanted to go back to stage and bring those songs live. So he gathered around him some friends, some amazing musicians, and they toured Europe as Mick Pointer's Marillion, or Mick Pointer and Friends, and in the end Mick Pointer Band. And they played amazing shows.
Chelsea money.
That brings us to 2009. In December 2009, at a show from Pendragon, At that show I heard that Nick Barrett was coming to Holland again, but this time together with Mick Pointer and friends to play Script from a Jesters Tear. Now, loving the album, loving Nick Barrett as a musician, I wanted to be there. So I went to that show at the Pul in Uden and I was absolutely blown away by the whole performance, by the way that they brought that album. And that magic is recreated on this CD. Looking at the lineup may be familiar, but there might be people who missed out on Mick Pointer and friends, and here's a chance to catch up with that. Of course, Mick Pointer, the man behind the drum kit, the best place where he can be. Then on guitars, as I mentioned, Nick Barrett. We have Ian Salmon on bass and Mike Varty on keyboards. And then the vocalist. And that was the man that really blew me away when I saw him on stage, Brian Cummins. He portrays Fish so well in all his gestures. Of course they had the attire to really make it a convincing show, but also vocally his voice comes very close to what you can expect from Fish. And that made the experience really fantastic, because despite the fact that there are other musicians on stage, musically you heard Marillion back in the days, in the early 80s, bringing their debut album live to a very enthusiastic crowd. That the crowd is enthusiastic is also captured on this album. Now, this album was not recorded in 2009. This album was recorded in 2013 when they did the last show at the Boerderij in Zoetermeer. I was there. I was there in 2009, I was there in 2013, and it was a fantastic show. It started out with a history, with photos and everything of the very start of Marillion, and then the band performing this album and more. And it was a fantastic night, and Brian Cummins really impressed me. I remember back in 2009, after the show I met him, and I told him how phenomenal I thought he was as Fish. And then he said, you know, I can do even a better Gabriel. And I had no idea that this man was also the frontman of Carpet Crawlers. And of course, January 2010, Carpet Crawlers came to Holland for the first time. And I was there again to see what a phenomenal vocalist Brian Cummins is. Despite the fact that he can change into a different musician, a different singer, he is a fantastic singer. And they recreate the magic of that early day Marillion on this CD. The really cool part is that this album, as it says right here, recorded and mixed by Simon Henhart. Now, if you would look up the credits on this album, you will find that Simon Henhart also recorded and mixed this album. So the very same man behind the buttons during the recordings and the mixing. Now, of course, sound-wise, this is a superb album, really capturing the magic of the Mick Pointer band on that last show. I mean, they had a lot of passion, you know, making it the best one ever, and I think they have definitely succeeded. They have succeeded in creating an amazing show, an amazing experience for everyone who had not had the opportunity to experience that early day Marillion. For example, what you have when you watch the recital of the Script DVD. Talking about recital of the Script, I mentioned that they played Script for Jesters Tear and more. I'll show it to you, because we can open this one up. We have two discs. The first disc is the Script for Jesters Tear album in its entirety played live. Then on the second disc we have some other tracks that you will mainly find also on this album besides themselves, including such amazing classics as Grendel, but also a song that when I first heard this album loved so much, Margaret. A lot of fun there, but also, you know, if you look at the musicians, when Marillion recorded this one, they were playing maybe for a few years. I would almost say veterans with 10, 20, 30, maybe more years of experience behind them. And if you listen to them, I mean, if you know Pendragon, you know what an amazing guitar player Nick Barrett is. When you listen to the solos on this album, wow, they are stunning, really breathtaking. They give me goosebumps, you know, how well he plays them. And the keyboards by Mike Vardy, and especially, for example, in a track such as Margaret, but also throughout the entire album, you know, wow. And he doesn't try to be another Mark Kelly. He tries to be his own and does justice to the songs, and he succeeds in that because it is really fantastic. Ian Selman, the bass player, wow, I love especially what he does on Chelsea Mondays. I mean, Chelsea Mondays is the dark, the bit of a depressing song, and there he uses his Moog Taurus pedals with this really deep, dark bass line in it. And then, of course, the captain on the ship, Mick Pointer, who brought all of these musicians together, you know, playing as he never played before, and really going into the music and putting together a fantastic show. And I'm really glad they captured it on CD. It would have been cool to have it on DVD, because this is a show you really need to see, especially with a frontman like Brian Cummins and the way he not just sings, not just, well, becomes Fish, but also in the way he acts on stage. It is really fantastic. I am not going to grade this album, absolutely not. All I say is, if you even remotely like Marillion Fish, the old Marillion script for Jesters Tear, you really need to hear this album. You really need to listen to it, but most importantly, buy this album, because this captures so much energy and so much passion that you would expect to find on a Marillion concert back in the early 80s. They have recreated that, and I say this is a fantastic piece of music, brought the classic, brought into, well, the modern day, almost, I would say. So check it out, Mick Pointer Band, Marillion's Script Revisited. That was my view on Mick Pointer Band's Marillion Script Revisited. Are you a die-hard Marillion fan? What do you think of this album and of this initiative? Let me know as a comment on YouTube, and let me know, is this an album you would at least listen to or buy? And if not, why not? So let me know as a comment on my YouTube channel. And of course, stay tuned, because more videos are coming your way, and I hope you will see me at a new review.